I want to start by reading an anonymous online post. It's a powerful and honest description of what someone is going through, and I'm going to read it to you word for word. It says, "I have a frantic fear of everything new. This fear arose in me after the birth of my child. It intervened with the beginning of the hell in which I lived with my husband. He began to show a tendency to violence, a slap, backstab, kick, spit in the face, insults, a blow to the throat. I missed that he raised a knife twice against me and promised me that I would leave his house in a coffin. I want to move from my husband's house to my house, to escape. For a year now, the physical violence has stopped, but the verbal one has remained. I started to get high blood pressure just from his raising his voice. We have a child who is almost 5 years old. There is already a secured kindergarten, but I can't muster the courage to leave. I feel like I'm in mental arrest. I don't know how to explain it more precisely. I was a determined woman who stood behind her words and decisions, and now that's gone."
This is, without a doubt, a profound cry for help. And from a psychological standpoint, it describes severe domestic abuse. But what's so incredibly insightful is the term the author uses for their own feeling: mental arrest. It's a really powerful and precise way to describe a state we're going to explore.
So the very first thing we need to get straight for the person who wrote this and for anyone who feels this way is this: you are not weak. You are not confused, and you have not lost yourself. What's happening is a completely normal human reaction to being in a state of prolonged terror. Your core self is still in there. It's just operating in pure survival mode.
So let's dig into the psychology behind this feeling of being completely and utterly trapped. That phrase mental arrest is actually a perfect way to describe a well-known psychological phenomenon that we call the freeze response.
This is the traumatic freeze response, and it's a primal survival instinct. See, when your brain perceives a threat that you can't fight and you can't run away from, it has a third option. It freezes. Your body learns that any movement, any decision could make things worse, could be dangerous. So to protect you, it just stays still.
This is such a critical thing to understand, the difference between how it feels inside and the psychological reality. So what feels like paralysis, what you might interpret as weakness, is actually that powerful survival instinct kicking in. What feels like a personal failing, like a lack of character, is a totally normal response to terror. And what feels like indecision, like you failed, that's not you. That is your brain in complete overload. This isn't a character flaw, it's a symptom of trauma.
Okay, let's talk about a really crucial point from the post. The part that says, the physical violence has stopped. It is so incredibly important to understand why this does not mean the situation is now safe. The danger has not passed.
Let's be very clear. Verbal abuse, the constant insults, the raised voice, it's not a lesser form of violence. It is a strategic tool. It's a weapon used to maintain that atmosphere of fear and control. Every shout, every insult, it reinforces the original trauma, and it keeps the nervous system on high alert, screaming that the threat could come back at any moment.
This quote, right here, gets to the absolute core of the terror. A threat like this, a promise of death, isn't just words. It's a deep psychological wound. It's designed to communicate that the threat is absolute, and that escape is, in fact, impossible.
And here's the thing you have to remember. The body keeps the score. Even if the abuser seems calm, even if your rational mind tries to tell you you're safe, your body has not forgotten that threat. That's why just a raised voice can cause blood pressure to spike. Your body is screaming danger, even when you're trying to rationalize it. You are still in survival mode.
And of course, there's another person living in this reality, the 5-year-old child. Now, there's a common and very dangerous misconception that if a child doesn't directly witness physical violence, they're somehow unaffected. That is fundamentally untrue.
Kids are like emotional sponges. They soak up everything. A child growing up with constant tension, with shouting, with one parent who is terrified of the other's voice, learns a really distorted view of the world. They learn that high tension is just normal, that fear is a constant part of life, that love is supposed to hurt, and that one parent's role is simply to endure pain. This becomes their blueprint, their map, for all future relationships.
So, knowing all this, how does someone possibly move forward from mental arrest? Well, the key is understanding that the path forward doesn't begin with some giant leap of courage. It begins with one single safe step.
This is maybe one of the most important concepts for anyone in a traumatic situation to grasp. You do not have to feel brave to act. Courage isn't something you need to find before you take action. It's the feeling that comes after you've taken one small, manageable, and safe step towards your own liberation.
So what does that first step even look like? It is not about a dramatic escape in the middle of the night. It's about quiet, careful planning. It starts with step 1, just reaching out for confidential support. Then, with that support, you move to step 2. You create a safe plan. And finally, step 3, you gather the resources you need to put that plan into action. You see? There's small, quiet, protected steps.
You might wonder what actually happens when I call a helpline. It can feel really intimidating, but what you'll find is someone who will just listen with no judgment. They're not going to pressure you into any action you're not ready for. These are experts in safety planning. They understand the freeze response, and they are there to help you think through your options in a way that feels safe to you.
That very first step can be as simple as a single phone call. Services like these are free, they're confidential, and they're available 24/7. Taking this first step isn't about leaving immediately. It's about reclaiming a little bit of your own power by simply starting a conversation. And that, right there, is where the path to courage begins.